Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at what is going on in the region with a particular focus, of course, on elections that are upcoming in India. And with these elections just around the corner, of course, there is a lot of discussions with regards to what happens pre-elections in India. Unfortunately, that has become a regular show with the BJP, of course, being in power previously as well and looking for another term. This is something, unfortunately, that is of huge concern to Pakistan and other countries in the region as well, particularly in terms of the Hindu supremacist ideology that has been put forward. And of course, pre-elections, a lot of concerns with regards to the crackdown against minorities, especially Muslims, that unfortunately seems to be part of the agenda that is put forward and also contributes to the kind of triumph and victory that the BJP gain and is hoping to gain. And so this is something that we're going to be taking a look at with a particular focus on what is going on with regards to these minorities and also the opposition parties and the alliance that had earlier been formed in opposition to the BJP, which seems to be struggling now under the crackdown that is happening against it from the BJP, and also the fact that its own ideologies seem to not match. There is a lot of friction, there is a lot of discussions around corruption scandals that have been put forward by the BJP, and then of course the kind of financial strains that are also being put up, including the freezing of accounts of Congress party that also claims that this is something that is going to cripple them in terms of participating in the elections, and perhaps seems to be the objective as well. At the same time, we also know that the BJP is exercising all the institutions and mechanisms under its control and power to put forward its own agenda and control what sort of narrative is being put forward, including the media, which seems to not be giving any attention to the kind of issues that the entire BJP term has been marred with, including unemployment and poverty, and rather, of course, focuses on other areas such as the inauguration of a Hindu temple on a contested site, the kind of handouts that have been given of rations to the public, irrespective of course, of how little they have done to help the economy. So we're going to be taking a look at all of this in terms of what is going on in India and try to understand that while so much control exists over institutions by the BJP and in light of the weak alliance that we've seen and then the crackdown against the opposition parties, what sort of aspects of any improvement or future progress hold true for India, not just in terms of these elections, but of course in the coming years and decades as well. So this is what is going to be our focus in the discussion today. And for this and more, as always in the studios, I've been joined by senior analysts Farrukh Pitafi and Faisal, and we've also been joined online by our guest Dr. John DAYAL, who's a human rights activist. Thank you very much, Dr. John, for being part of the discussion and being with us in the debate. It's a pleasure having you. Let's first talk about what has been going on in terms of the opposition parties in light of the elections. We have seen, of course, a huge crackdown of the opposition parties, arrest of their leaders, freezing of their accounts. And so this is, of course, resulted in little or no hope in terms of any opposition to the BJP. And while that might have been already the case previously as well, how will this crackdown against the opposition parties in any way contribute to the way that the people of India or the followers of these opposition parties are going to react, and whether or not this can be brought forward at least in some capacity or the other in terms of highlighting what the BJP is doing?
I live in India and I refuse to be pessimistic about it. Till the last vote is cast and the last vote is counted, which is going to be another 95 days, there is no reason to give up hope. There is great reason to worry. Because one of the prime things that are required in any democratic election in any country is a level playing field. Everything else being equal, the advantage to the ruling group, whichever it is, being acknowledged, and yet all of the facilities, all of the situations, all laws, all institutions are supposed to afford everybody who's contesting, whether it's a small time independent or a massive party, or in fact the Prime Minister of India, the playing field has to be level for all of them. Not one of them should fear the police more than the other. Not one of them should say that somebody else is being bribed, somebody is being arrested, some illegal things are being done, some model code of conduct violations are taking place. That has been seriously eroded unilaterally, eroded on behalf of the BJP, with several agencies complicit. There are very few agencies left which will say that we have nothing to do with it. We are absolutely neutral. So the first thing, of course, as you have said is, and in fact, I must point out, the first thing you have not said is that the role of the minorities as voters may be considerable, but the role of the minorities as participants in the elections has been extremely marginalized. Last time, the BJP did not have a single candidate and therefore did not have a single MP in the Lok Sabha in 2019. And this time, it doesn't seem that they're going to give any ticket to anybody, anywhere, who is Muslim. Christians themselves have been given a few straight tickets, one in Kerala, just one, and maybe one or two in the Northeast. So collectively, a 20% minority is bereft of political representation from the ruling group. They will indeed make their presence in the Lok Sabha on behalf of the Congress, on behalf of the Yadav parties, on behalf of the southern parties. They will make their presence. Eventually, you may have 40 or so Muslims and Christians together in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. But the point is, the ruling party has made it clear that religious minorities, particularly Muslims and Christians, do not figure in its larger future for India. And that, to me, as a Christian, is extremely worrisome. Now, to come to the second point, all facilities are being given to the ruling party. The entire media, what we call the Godi media, which was television and newspapers, most of them, 60% of them, controlled by Mr. Ambani and Mr. Adani, two trillionaires who are friends of Mr. Modi. That media is supporting Mr. Modi by hook or by crook. Debates, news, advertisements, you name the format, you name the forum, and it is loaded heavily in favor of Mr. Modi. The opposition gets almost no place. In fact, the Congress at one stage, a couple of days ago, protested that their advertisements, paid advertisements, for which they were going to pay cash, were not being accepted by many papers. Yesterday, I put up on my Facebook the first political ad I saw in any newspaper, and it was in the Indian Express, which is keeping a very sort of dodgy balancing act between the BJP and the Congress. The second thing is putting pressure on the main opposition parties, arresting the main leaders, putting cases by all agencies against them for murders, for corruption, for all sorts of other things. And lastly, putting pressure on the Congress to establish it as something which has been working against the interests of the country ever since partition, which is a bit of a joke, because the BJP was quite cozy with the British when the Congress was fighting, and in fact before partition was leading the freedom movement across the southern subcontinent. So you can see whether it is on the issue of China, where Nehru is blamed for conceding land and sucking up to China in a way, to Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, who are supposed to have given up territories in the Indian Ocean to Sri Lanka. Both these things don't stand the scrutiny of history. Both of these things don't stand the scrutiny of any political scientist or any strategic analyst. Because, in fact, at both places, particularly in the southern areas, India has gained much by sort of in its dealings with Sri Lanka. It is the net beneficiary. And yet, the BJP, which has no concept of foreign relations, whose leadership believes foreign relations are hugging a leader and not relationships between two states, which are multipolar, multi-issue, involve all sorts of strategies, in all sorts of diplomats, non-diplomats, backroom parleys, treaties, international affairs. It has no concept of all of this, it would seem. And it is welded, the strategic relations, foreign relations, absolutely into its Hindutva Rashtra. And that is very worrisome, because even if it wins a third time, which possibly it might, it is going to have to backtrack on much of the bad mouthing it has done and the irritation it may have caused to Indian neighbors and India's relationships with various people. And those are issues which mean that the BJP government at the moment is so focused on steamrolling everybody else to get 400 plus, or of all I know, 500 seats in a House of 541, that they do not care how they get it. And foreign relations, economic policies, business policies, political issues, home defense, all of them have been merged, segged into one single point aggression against INDIA, which essentially means the Congress and its allies.
I'm so glad that you're addressing all these issues. Since you are so courageously still standing on ground and you're in India, let me ask you to actually draw a parallel or a comparison. When Vajpayee government was in power at that time, the Tehelka scandal actually exploded and that had an impact on elections. It seems that scams do play a role in how governments actually are formed. Then we saw 2G scandal and Lokpal bill during 2013-14, and after that, of course, there was change of government. Now it seems that the Supreme Court of India has exposed the mother of all scams, that is the electoral bond issue. And it is such a big issue that it keeps on giving more eggs every time we look at it. Do you think that that is not going to have any fallout in the elections at all? And India has changed its mind regarding how corruption is to be pursued?
Analysts of the subcontinent. And you realize that generically, while it is possible that if you throw enough mud, some of it is going to stick. But it is also so that some issues are more amenable to a public outrage, to a public mass conflagration, which impacts, while more elitist issues, more subtle issues, issues that are difficult to understand or even to explain to a common voter, then get marginalized and the slogan of Hindutva or some other issue gets main stage. And electoral bonds, first of all, the problem is every party got it. The other problem, of course, is that the ratio is 1 to 10. If one party got a little, BJP got 10 times more or 100 times more. The ratio of both of them then becomes comparative corruption. Whereas in the past, when corruption was being charged against the Congress, when you had 2G or when you had the coal mine scandal, there was no other party benefiting from them. So it was a single party as the target, and every brick, every mud thrown at it by all the opposition stuck. And later it was found that these things were fake, that there was really no 2G scandal. It was a notional thing, and the coal mines were also notional. So a notional thing became real to the detriment of the Congress. A real thing has become notional and is not detrimental to the BJP, because the BJP will say, but everybody else has taken. TMC has taken a lot for the same exchange thing.
Help me understand this. So this link between electoral bonds and extortion, where ED, Enforcement Directorate, IT and others are used as enforcement wing of BJP to extort more money. Is it very difficult case to build by the opposition?
See, as I was explaining, the enforcement wing and the CBI are used against the opposition not only to extort money, but they are used mainly to erode the campaigning, the electioneering, the political strength of the parties. So when you arrest a leader, you have hamstrung that party in a major way. Today, Arvind Kejriwal is in jail. He may be released tomorrow, for I know. The courts have reserved the order. But he not being able to campaign impacts not only AAP, but also the Congress and so many other parties. And this is where the effect of senior leaders being threatened by jail terms or being actually put in jail terms has a very different and a much more powerful impact in curbing or in corroding the what I call the uniform or the platform on which parties fight elections, the level playing field. That is the impact. The fact that they are extorting on behalf of the BJP, they were extorting even before the election. The BJP has many other levers to extort money without bringing in. After all, Mr. Adani has made trillions, and some of it must be coming back to the BJP. It is investing in large-scale constructions of its headquarters in more than 600 districts, and it's going to billions and billions of rupees. Where's the money coming from? So as far as political corruption is concerned, the BJP is corrupt as well. Can we use it and prove it and to the masses so that they vote against the BJP is the difficulty that the opposition is facing.
Dr. Dayal, obviously, if we go through the timeline of Modi's rule and BJP's government's rule in India, of course, if we take the very first tenure of Modi as Prime Minister of the country and BJP ruling the country, we can say that at that time they laid the foundations for giving influence and giving more power to their allies in terms of political allies, RSS ideology. They gave importance to them, and at the same time within the business community, they cherry picked few of the names who aligned themselves to of course BJP, and they empowered them at that time. Then in the second government when they got, we saw that they were all against they were going all against the minorities, and minorities were marginalized, be it Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, and even Dalits. They were marginalized as well in the second tenure of their government. Now what we are seeing, that if they get the third one, they are already showing their true colors, that they are going to hit the secular factor of India, the secular forces amongst India. They are going to be hit in the coming tenure of Modi if he gets to power. Don't you think that this is the time for India to actually press the default settings button so that everything is normalized in India after 2 tenures of Modi, so that the values India is known for is like one of the biggest largest democracy of the world, and the secular factor and the secular constitution of India, it can be restored back, and it is the last chance for the secular secular side of India to actually get back to where it belongs.
And Dr. Saab, building on this, particularly because you said that the target is to get 400 or 500 seats, but this one is a hypothetical. Suppose that the dog catches the bus and they get that kind of number. What kind of India do you see then? Are they going to change the constitution? Is India going to become a Hindu Rashtra? What is your take on this, sir?
Yeah. So first of all, let me, I should not say correct you, but say that the RSS is not an ally of the BJP. It is the mother of the BJP. The BJP is the political wing of the RSS and fights elections. The RSS does not have elections of this kind and possibly doesn't believe in them. Secondly, it will be incorrect to say that Mr. Modi's first term was benign in any way to the minorities, particularly to the Muslims. In fact, from 2013, when Mr. Modi it was apparent that he would be the prime ministerial candidate. From the day he was chosen, his campaign was acrid, it was acidic, it was humorous, and it was a very communal campaign. And it was on that communal campaign, as I've been writing all these years, that Mr. Modi rode to power in 2014. And people then thought that aspirational India, development, all those things would take center stage. But Mr. Modi has kept a communal campaign, an Islamophobic, anti-Christian, larger and issue as his second line of attack, and sometimes as his main attack, sometimes collectively together with the aspirational aspect. And every time the actual election takes place, the last 100 days, it comes back to hyper-nationalism, to religion, to anti-minorities. It always has been boiling out. And the next term, this next 100 days are not going to be any different. Will a BJP that comes back with a whopping majority be able to alter the constitution is something to be seen. Technically, it will be very difficult because it's not just having majorities in the Lok Sabha. You have to have a clear majority in the Rajya Sabha, which involves many other states. Two, even after some changes are made to the constitution, they have to be ratified by every state. And a majority of states ratify it. The southern states, the eastern states will not ratify it, quite obviously. So the ratification of constitutional changes is a long process. Thirdly, and which is what worries me more, is internationally, whether it's in America or Europe, there is an upsurge of right-wing, hyper-nationalistic, with a strong religion undertone all over. And India is no exception to that. The problem with this is where does the human rights community appeal? We cannot ask the West to indict India or to pressure India, not that I would want to do that. But when the same sort of things are happening, you see what happened in Finland just the other day. And when these things are happening in Germany, in the US, in the UK, what will they say? With what face will they be able to make any comment on India? And India has been very aggressive in saying that its internal affairs, it will not allow any interference. So an interference, name and shame, is not going to work. What then are the checks and balances to see that India's security, internal security, is not challenged by this lopsided hyper-nationalism? Internal security will not be challenged if federalism is as we have seen it the last 70 years. It will not be challenged if all minorities, all Dalits, all tribals are assured the same rights as other citizens, where there will be no pressure of CAA or scheduled tribes. All those things will not be there. And I think no government, not even Mr. Modi, despite his recent successes, scoring points over the Congress and other parties, no party would dare, I think, I can afford to say that, would dare meddle with something which will unsettle the stability that India has been able to show off to the world the last 70 years.
I'm glad that you actually brought up Dalits, OBCs and their politics as well. Let us unpack the politics of the most populous state in India, that is, Uttar Pradesh, UP. And when you talk about that, particularly on one side is India Alliance, on the other is NDA, but then there is BSP, Bahujan Samaj Party of Mayawati. And it seems that they not only has it refused to align with either of the two silos, but they have actually in all Muslim majority constituencies actually fielded Muslim candidates. You were saying that BJP has not, and here is a party that is fielding candidates of Muslim origin, but then it is thought that it is going to undercut the popularity of India Alliance because it is going to break their vote, not BJP's. Again, BSP is known to speak for the backward classes. So, do you think that there is some kind of alliance between NDA and BSP there?
Let us begin with the fact that Uttar Pradesh, the BJP had almost reached the upper limit of what it can get in Uttar Pradesh. It has 82 or 83 seats, don't know the exact number at the moment. To get those seats, and the Chief Minister is promising 100% to his bosses, is impossible. Uttar Pradesh is 3 different regions, is a collection of states. In the olden days, it used to be called the United Provinces before partition, and immediately after partition also it used to be called the United Provinces because it was a union of many provinces. East Uttar Pradesh is very different from Awadh, which is very different from West Uttar Pradesh. Each seat has to be fought. Hindutva agenda works in quite a lot of them, but the Yadavs have their vote. The Dalits have their vote. What combination of Dalits works where? So every seat, although you can say that on first glance, Mayawati may not be working in conjunction. But if they put up a weak candidate, where the Congress has a stronger candidate, or the Yadavs have a stronger candidate, it is like playing a fixed match. They are working together to see that the BJP doesn't make do. And Mayawati has not said she's going to support BJP. She's in fact, and although she has been an ally of the BJP many times, but in this election, where she's ceding power to her next generation, her nephew, she has not conceded any ground to the BJP. So I'm not going to write her off. I'm not going to say she will help the Congress and the Samajwadis win any major victories. I'm not saying that. But collectively, they still pose a challenge. And the BJP, howsoever arrogant and proud it may be, cannot afford to ease its hold on every single seat. It has to fight every single seat, apart from, say, possibly Varanasi, where Mr. Modi is going to contest.
So post-election, Dr. Saab, you see a possibility of SP and BSP essentially existing within this, under the same banner and working in tandem?
Don't care if after the elections they kill each other. In the elections, are they going to help each other to contain and, if possible, to defeat the BJP on each single seat where they're fighting? That is the issue. All of them have not put up candidates everywhere. They have put up candidates in their strongholds and in bargaining and giving candidates a small number to Congress, a small number to smaller, even fragmented parties of one or two. So the question is, how does the maths play out on voting day? Are they going to be able to transfer votes? Mayawati can transfer her votes to any party. She has a hold on her party. But other parties may find it difficult to transfer votes to Mayawati because in the Indian caste tradition, she is a Dalit. And to ask an upper caste to vote for a Dalit sometimes becomes problematic. These are not communist parties. These are parties full of subcastes of their own and all sorts of internal problems. And that is true even for the BJP, by the way. So that is the situation where Uttar Pradesh is tense for the BJP and a very, very tough uphill ride for the opposition.
Dr. John, let's also talk about what's going on in the region and how it's affecting domestic politics. And I want to understand whether or not what we've seen happen in Maldives and what is also springing up in Bangladesh in terms of the India Out campaign has any impact on the way that people are also viewing the BJP inside of India, and whether or not this can create problems for the BJP irrespective of whatever their victory is like in the elections in terms of dealing with the countries around the region.
Fortunately, any anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or the Maldives or Pakistan or China or Nepal or Bhutan helps the BJP because it immediately helps them rev up the Hindutva agenda, that all these are Islamic countries or Buddhist countries and they are meddling with India and we must show who we are. So that is my point. At the moment, even our neighbors have to play it not safe, but carefully. Because if there's a huge march against India in any of these neighboring capitals, it will be capitalized the next day by the BJP social media, by the BJP spokesman, and by the BJP itself. And the Foreign Office will also issue some demarches and some notices. So this is, the Kachatiru, for instance, was a non-issue. The whole thing is the level of about two football fields. It's not an issue at all.
Right. Dr. Dayal, obviously, if we look at the kind of polarization we are seeing in India today, and if we look at the marginalization of the minorities, and obviously look at the political parties, secular political parties, they have been, of course, seeing backlash as well, and government was forcing them to on a side in the midst of whole of this problems which are being faced by people at large in India. After the elections, if Modi and BJP are forming a government which is seems like possible, then do you see India, a different India in terms of like all of these polarizations and of course Muslims and Christians and Sikhs being marginalized and Dalits as well, there will be sort of extra problems erupting within India in terms that they will be losing trust in the center?
These elections are not Muslims and Christians on one side and Hindus on the other. Every party, including the communist parties, are essentially Hindu. Most of them are essentially upper caste and OBC, with very few Dalit components, which are therefore forced to form parties of their own, although some of them, like including the Congress, has a strong Dalit base also. So every political party which opposes the BJP is opposing it on the strength of its own Hindu population, of its own Hindu supporters. Otherwise, they would have lost even before filing the nomination. So I think let's not forget this, that everybody who's opposing Hindutva is also Hindu. And that is a sharp distinction between Hinduism, which is a religion, benign possibly apart from casteism, and Hindutva, which is a very aggressive political version of nothingness, I can say.
Dr. John, there's also concern when we talk about what the BJP is doing within India and the way that they're controlling different institutions, including the media and judiciary. But I want to focus now on the judiciary, since we've seen the crackdown happen on different opposition parties. Although, of course, they've talked about how the BJP is involved, they've also made a statement saying that they still think that the judiciary is independent and that they have full confidence in the judiciary in terms of whatever follows. And so I want to understand whether that's just a statement that's coming out and whether that's truly the case where the opposition has that trust in the judiciary.
And could you also illuminate the difference between the central judiciary and the state judiciary, sir?
There are three types of judiciaries. There's the Supreme Court of India, there are the high courts of the various states, and the judges of the Supreme Court come from the high courts. And then there is the other cadre of the district level judiciary, which are district magistrates, session judges, metropolitan magistrates.
Otherwise, it is true, but I was talking about biases, possible biases.
Let me just, in 1.5 minutes, let me explain. The Supreme Court of India, which has 32 judges, is as good as the bench that is taking up a case. So you can find two benches, one with the Chief Justice of India ruling in favor of the opposition, whereas another bench of 3 other judges may be denying bail to an opposition candidate. That is quite possible in our current structure of the Supreme Court, because each bench is sovereign to the extent that its judgments are as valid as any other benches. So this is one of the issues. The second issue is benches also are influenced by the character and the background of the Chief Justice. The current Chief Justice has been within the circumstances, although he's been playing to both sides, still on the larger sum total has been progressive, has been defending human rights, has been defending constitutional rights, has been opposing the internal agencies and their role against the opposition. He's been doing that. Once he retires later this year, what will happen has to be seen. But during the currency of this election, he's quite in control. So the second thing is, as you've said, the judiciary is also human. As we saw in Calcutta, a High Court judge resigned, next day joined the BJP, third day was given a ticket. And even when he was on the bench, he was berating the opposition, the Congress and the TMC. So there are people on judges also who have been selected by the previous Chief Justices, and they may be pro-Hindutva, they may be pro-BJP. We don't know what is in the minds. Many of the judgments are terrible. Many of them are patriarchal, many of them are communal to an extent. Just now, it had to take a national protest to see that Good Friday and Easter were not working days. So you can imagine. But while there may be a Chief Justice, the Chief Justice who may rule giving Babri Masjid to the Hindus, while also ruling that the breaking of the Babri Masjid was illegal. There will be a Chief Justice who also just now has given about 3 or 4 major rulings which have been a setback to the BJP, including on the election bonds.
Right. Dr. John, when we then speak of media, and of course we know how controlled it is, but I want to understand whether or not there are any cracks in the system with people like a voice that you have can actually seep through, and is there any way that these discussions are actually coming forward?
As a journalist of 54 years or so experience in the field, I'm ashamed. I would not say the media has been controlled by the BJP. The media is sucking up to the BJP of its own volition, of its commercial greed, of its political greed. When asked, once somebody said that when asked to bend, you lay prostrate. These were not even asked to bend, they just were already prostrate. So the biggest companies, the chains who control Times Now and Times of India, the Goenkers, the builders, everybody, and the Ambanis and the Adanis, of course, were brought into the media field just to control the media. While the steel mills and jute mills of the Second World War had bought the media from the British. These two giants, Adani and Ambani, were persuaded by the BJP to come and buy up all the other companies. So it's the other way around. They were asked to come and take control, and they did it mechanically and in a business-like fashion, buying the shares, buying the companies, and thereby buying the goodwill of the editors. Those who didn't like left. Will the media survive this onslaught? Much has changed internationally on the media. People are now online. I'm talking to you online. Social media is a force in itself, and a large number, particularly in the Hindi belt, a large number of social media activists are large, booming voices against Mr. Modi with huge followings.
Yeah, Dr. Dayal, Dr. Dayal, if we obviously, look at the current circumstances and current political situation of India, of course, there are political parties that are being cornered and institutions are being used to corner them, and this, of course, can be considered as pre-poll rigging. And of course, if we look at the voices from the Western countries, of course, the Western governments would be looking at it very keenly. And after election, if Modi and BJP is coming back into power once more for another term, can we say that there will be a backlash from the Western countries in the context of course, it was the pre-poll rigging, and there will be music faced by Modi?
And before that, Dr. John, if you can also add to what we were discussing earlier in terms of the followers that you're saying of voices against the BJP. I understand that there may be many, but in terms of the impact that they have and whether or not they are creating any avenues for change in India, do you believe so that there has been any progress on this?
Let me give you a small instance. The number of memes, of reels, of cracks and jokes and cartoons on Modi is nobody's business. They're in the tens of thousands in all languages. This is unparalleled, and nobody mocked Indira Gandhi like that in her election. She was quite a tyrant in many ways. So people are mocking her, laughing at Modi also. Let's not disregard this. The election campaign is not just the big tamasha.
Of the discussion, that's all that we have from the show. We'll now see you tomorrow.